Hold two magnets in your hands, not touching, not connected. Just suspended across empty space. Now push them together. Something pushes back, something pulls, and whatever it is, you cannot see it. This invisible force acting across nothing disturbed the greatest minds in physics for centuries, and it should disturb you too. Because what we are about to talk about is not really about magnets, it is about space itself. Whether the space between objects is truly empty or quietly filled with something real. Whether the vacuum is a void or an active participant in reality. And why asking what exists between two magnets might be one of the most important questions you can ask about the universe. Two magnets, one in each hand, you bring them closer and you feel them snap together or push apart. The usual explanation sounds simple enough. Magnets create magnetic fields, and those fields exert forces on other magnets. Most people accept that and move on, never asking the question that actually matters. What exactly is a field? A field sounds like an answer, but it is not. It is a placeholder, a word we use when we stop digging. Instead of asking how one object affects another across empty space, we rename the mystery and call it solved. But naming something does not explain it, it only hides the question underneath, waiting for someone stubborn enough to keep asking. Isaac Newton understood this problem better than most. In 1687, he published the Principia and laid the foundations of classical mechanics. His equations described gravity perfectly. They told you exactly how objects attract each other across space. But Newton himself was deeply uncomfortable with what those equations implied. He wrote that the idea of one body acting on another at a distance through a vacuum without mediation was an absurdity. This was not ignorance, this was intellectual honesty. Newton knew his math worked, but he also knew it did not explain what was actually happening in the space between objects. This was not just Newton's problem. For nearly 200 years, physicists wrestled with it. They invented the concept of fields to avoid action at a distance. But the invention did not solve the mystery, it simply moved it. Instead of asking how one object acts across empty space, physicists now had to ask what a field actually is. Michael Faraday took the idea seriously in the 1830s. He imagined magnetic fields as real lines of force stretching through space. You have seen them traced by iron filings on paper, elegant curves forming visible patterns. Faraday believed these lines were not just mathematical tricks. He thought something physical really existed there. James Clerk Maxwell later translated Faraday's intuition into mathematics. His equations described electricity, magnetism, and light with astonishing accuracy. They predicted radio waves, X-rays, and everything in between. But even Maxwell struggled to explain what fields truly were. He tried mechanical models of gears and vortices filling space. None survived scrutiny. By the early 20th century, physicists gave up on mechanical explanations. They kept the equations and discarded the pictures. The math worked, and that was enough. Richard Feynman later admitted that magnetic fields cannot be explained using anything more familiar. They are fundamental. When asked what they are, physics simply runs out of words. That frustration hides a deeper question. When two magnets sit apart, you see nothing between them, no substance, no connection. Even if you remove the air and create a vacuum, the force remains. So the obvious conclusion seems unavoidable. The vacuum itself must be doing something, and that idea changes everything. Classical physics treated empty space as truly empty. A passive stage where events occurred but which had no properties of its own. That picture is wrong. Experiments proved it wrong. Maxwell's equations showed that electromagnetic waves move through space at a fixed speed. Light itself turned out to be one of those waves. But waves usually require a medium. Water waves move through water. Sound waves through air. So 19th century physicists proposed the ether, an invisible substance filling space. Light was supposed to ripple through it, yet experiments failed to detect it. The famous Michelson-Morley experiment showed the ether simply was not there. Einstein resolved the problem by removing the medium entirely. Fields did not need anything to wave in. They were fundamental. Space itself did not require substance to carry light. But this answer only deepened the mystery. If fields exist without a medium, then what are they? What exactly fills the vacuum when nothing else is present? Quantum mechanics delivered the unsettling answer. The vacuum is not empty. Even when all particles are removed, space is still active. Quantum fields exist everywhere at all times. Particles are not objects moving through space. They are excitations in these fields. Even at rest, the fields cannot be completely still. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle guarantees constant fluctuations. Virtual particles appear and vanish continuously. This is not theory alone. The Casimir effect proves it. Two metal plates placed close together in a vacuum experience attraction because the vacuum between them fluctuates differently than the vacuum outside. The pressure is measurable and real. The vacuum contains energy, structure, activity. Space itself has properties. So when you ask what lies between two magnets, the answer becomes unavoidable. The magnetic field is not a metaphor. It stores energy. It resists compression. It carries momentum. When you force magnets together, you are working against something physically present. The field exists even if the second magnet is not there. The first magnet creates a field that fills space around it. When another magnet enters that region, it responds to the field, not directly to the other object. In quantum terms, the force is mediated by virtual photons exchanged through the field. These virtual photons cannot be directly observed. They exist briefly, borrowing energy in accordance with quantum rules. But their effects are measurable. They carry force between magnets. They fill the space between objects. Space is not empty silence. It is alive with exchange. A constant negotiation of energy that never fully stops. There is another crucial clue that the field is real. Rotate one magnet suddenly, the other does not respond instantly. The change propagates outward at the speed of light. This delay proves something physical is traveling through space. Information is carried by the field itself. The field has dynamics, energy, and its own behavior. Maxwell's equations describe how changing electric fields create magnetic fields and changing magnetic fields create electric ones. These changes propagate as waves. Light is one of those waves, radio signals are another. Even a static magnetic field, when disturbed, sends ripples outward. The field is not passive, it is an active participant. If space contains fields, then space itself is no longer empty. It becomes a medium. Not a mechanical substance like air or water, but a quantum one. The vacuum has energy density. This energy may be responsible for the expansion of the universe. Empty space pushes galaxies apart. Nothingness turns out to be powerful. Quantum field theory predicts vacuum energy values that differ wildly from what astronomers observe. The discrepancy is enormous, 120 orders of magnitude. This is the worst prediction error in physics history. Yet both theory and observation agree on one thing. The vacuum has energy, space itself is not nothing. The Higgs field makes this undeniable. It fills all of space and gives particles mass. Even in a perfect vacuum, the Higgs field is switched on. Without it, electrons would be massless. Atoms could not exist, chemistry would collapse. The universe depends on the properties of fields embedded in empty space. So, what lies between two magnets exists on several levels. Air molecules are there, but they are irrelevant. Classical magnetic fields are there, storing energy and stress. Beneath that lies the quantum electromagnetic field, exchanging virtual photons. Beneath that still is the quantum vacuum, a restless sea of fluctuating fields. Each layer is real. Each layer exists simultaneously. The deeper you look, the stranger the picture becomes. The vacuum is not absence, it is potential, it is structure. When you hold magnets apart, you are holding them inside a medium far more complex than any material substance ever discovered. This is not abstract philosophy. Quantum electrodynamics is the most accurate theory ever tested. Its predictions match experiments to 10 decimal places. That precision depends entirely on treating fields as real. Without real fields, atoms would not hold together. Matter would fall apart, the universe would be unrecognizable. The structure of the vacuum determines the strength of forces and the masses of particles. Change the vacuum slightly and everything changes. Different chemistry, different stars, no life? The properties of empty space dictate the structure of reality itself. What exists between magnets also exists between every atom in your body. This realization forced a philosophical shift. Space was no longer a container, it became an actor. Relativity showed that space-time bends and curves. Quantum mechanics showed it fluctuates, space gained structure, energy, and dynamics. The universe is not objects moving through nothing, it is patterns unfolding within fields. In this view, particles are not fundamental, fields are. An electron is an excitation in the electron field. A photon is an excitation in the electromagnetic field. The fields exist everywhere, even when no particles are present. Matter is temporary, fields persist, they are the foundation of everything that exists. Between your magnets is the electromagnetic field, and that field is as real as the magnets themselves. In fact, it may be more real. The magnets are just arrangements of atoms, and atoms are excitations in fields. The field is what remains when everything else is stripped away. It is the deeper layer of reality. But this does not end the mystery. Knowing that fields exist does not tell us what they are made of. A field assigns a value to every point in space, but what is that value physically? What substance carries it? Physics can predict how fields behave with extraordinary accuracy, yet their underlying nature remains unexplained. This is not a failure. Every explanation must stop somewhere. Fields may be the bedrock, or they may emerge from something deeper, like strings vibrating in hidden dimensions. Even then, the question simply moves again: what are strings made of? At the deepest level, reality may resist further explanation. What we can say with certainty is this: space has structure. The vacuum fluctuates, it carries energy. It can exert pressure. It can change state. It is not static or inert. The vacuum behaves like a dynamic system governed by laws, not an empty backdrop where nothing happens. This has been confirmed repeatedly. The Lamb shift shows electrons interact with vacuum fluctuations. The magnetic moment of the electron reveals constant virtual particle exchange. The Casimir effect proves empty space can push. These are not philosophical ideas. They are experimental facts measured with extraordinary precision. The vacuum may even be unstable. Our universe might exist in a metastable vacuum state. A lower energy vacuum could exist. If a transition occurred, it would expand at light speed, rewriting the laws of physics as it passed. Matter would dissolve. Atoms would not survive. The vacuum itself defines reality. Seen this way, the vacuum is a medium. Not mechanical, but quantum. Light propagates through it. Forces travel through it. Particles interact with it. Its properties determine the speed of light and the strength of electromagnetism. A different vacuum would produce a completely different universe. This is why magnetism feels mysterious. Our intuition expects contact. But no force ever involves true contact. When you touch a surface, electromagnetic fields repel atoms before they meet. You have never touched anything directly. All interactions are field-mediated. The gap between magnets simply makes this visible. Think of space as thick rather than empty. Moving through it disturbs fields, resistance appears. Mass itself arises from interaction with the Higgs field. Without fields, particles would have no inertia. Motion would cost nothing. Forces would not exist. Fields give space weight and structure. Return again to the magnets, half an inch apart. Between them is the electromagnetic field embedded in the quantum vacuum. Virtual photons flash into existence and vanish. Energy is stored, stress builds when the magnets move, the field responds. Nothing reaches across nothing, everything happens locally through the field. Even now, we have not reached the bottom. Quantum field theory works, but it does not explain why fields exist at all. It tells us how they behave, not what they fundamentally are. Physics accepts this limit for now. Accurate description comes before ultimate explanation. Despite these mysteries, the empirical foundation is solid. Field energy is measured. Field momentum is measured. Vacuum forces are measured. Predictions match experiments again and again. Fields are real because they leave fingerprints everywhere. Reality responds to them whether we understand them or not. Space is not emptiness. It is an active system filled with quantum fields. These fields fluctuate, interact, and carry energy. They determine the behavior of matter and the evolution of the universe. What exists between magnets exists everywhere. The same structure fills atoms, rooms, and the vast spaces between galaxies. This understanding reshapes existence itself. You are not matter floating in void, you are a pattern in fields. A temporary arrangement of excitations. Stable for a time, then gone, the fields remain. They are the continuous background from which all structure emerges and into which it eventually dissolves. Hold the magnets again, feel the force. That sensation is not mysterious action at a distance. It is the electromagnetic field pushing on charged particles in the magnet, which push on atoms, which push on molecules in your hand. The force is local, continuous, real. We began with a simple question. What lies between two magnets? The answer is not nothing. It is the electromagnetic field, the quantum vacuum, the structured fabric of space itself. Invisible, intangible, but indispensable. Without it, no forces would exist, no matter. No stars, no life. The space between is not empty. It never was. It is full of the deepest reality we know. Fields everywhere, always active, always present. The quiet foundation beneath everything that exists. Hold the magnets one more time, feel the force pressing against your hands, the invisible resistance or pull that seems to come from nowhere. What you are feeling is not magic or mystery. You are feeling the structure of space itself pushing back, responding, reacting through something real even though you cannot see it. The electromagnetic field fills the space between the magnets. It is not empty and it is not passive. It is alive with activity, filled with virtual photons constantly appearing and disappearing. These exchanges carry force and energy, linking one magnet to the other through the quantum vacuum itself. That field presses on charged particles inside the magnet. Those particles push on atoms. Atoms push on molecules. Molecules push on your skin. The force you feel is mediated step by step, locally, continuously. There is no action at a distance, only interactions carried through fields that exist everywhere. The space between is doing the work. It is the medium through which all forces travel. Without it, magnets would not attract or repel. Light would not propagate. Atoms would not hold together. Space is not a stage where reality plays out. Space is part of the machinery of reality itself. This is why the question matters. Asking what exists between two magnets forces you to confront the deeper truth that emptiness is an illusion. What looks like nothing is actually packed with structure, rules, energy, and potential. The vacuum is not absence, it is the foundation upon which everything rests. You are not a collection of particles drifting through nothingness. You are a temporary pattern in quantum fields that fill the universe. Every breath, every movement, every thought depends on these fields behaving exactly as they do. Change the vacuum and everything else changes with it. The fields are always there. Between magnets, between atoms, between stars and galaxies. Invisible, intangible, yet absolutely real, more fundamental than matter itself. Without them, there would be no forces, no interactions, no chemistry, no life, and no observers to ask these questions. The space between is not empty. It never was. It is full of the deepest reality we know. Fields everywhere, always active, always present. The quiet foundation beneath everything that exists. And when you feel magnets pull or push, you are touching that foundation directly. This realization changes how you see the universe. Reality is not made of solid objects floating in space. It is made of interacting fields overlapping everywhere, shaping what particles can exist and how they behave. Matter is secondary. The fields come first. Even empty space has energy. This is not speculation. It is measured, predicted, and observed. The quantum vacuum fluctuates constantly, producing measurable effects like the Casimir force and vacuum polarization. Space resists being truly empty because emptiness is not allowed by physics. If you could remove every particle from a region of space, the fields would remain. They cannot be turned off. They define what particles are allowed to appear and how they must behave. Particles are excitations of fields, not independent objects moving through nothing. An electron is not a tiny marble. It is a vibration in the electron field. A photon is a ripple in the electromagnetic field. Even quarks are disturbances in deeper quantum fields. Everything you call matter is a pattern of motion in something more fundamental. This is why fields are so strange. They exist everywhere at once. They do not need permission to be present. They do not disappear when nothing is happening. They are the background reality, the stage, the script, and the actors all at the same time. Gravity fits into this picture too. According to general relativity, gravity is not a force traveling through space. It is space itself bending and responding to energy and mass. Once again, space is active. It reacts, it participates. It is not an empty container. When mass is present, spacetime curves, objects follow that curvature. Planets orbit stars not because they are pulled by invisible strings, but because space itself tells them how to move. Motion follows geometry. Cause and effect are written into the fabric of space. Even time is part of this structure. Space and time are not separate things. They form spacetime together, a dynamic entity that can stretch, compress, ripple, and evolve. Gravitational waves are not objects moving through space. They are vibrations of spacetime itself. When detectors like LIGO measure gravitational waves, they are measuring space changing shape. Distances grow and shrink by tiny amounts as waves pass through Earth. Space itself moves. Not inside something else. Space is what is moving. So when you ask what exists between two magnets, the answer expands outward. The same reality exists between atoms, between planets, between galaxies, fields, and spacetime fill everything. The universe is not mostly empty. It is mostly structure we cannot see. What we experience as solid matter is a thin layer of stability on top of this deeper foundation. Your chair feels solid because the electromagnetic fields repel your atoms from the atoms beneath you. Solidity is resistance. Resistance is interaction. Interaction requires fields. Remove the fields and solidity vanishes, atoms collapse, chemistry disappears. There are no bonds, no forces, no matter as we know it. The universe would not be empty. It would be impossible. Existence itself depends on these invisible structures. This is why the vacuum is the most important thing in physics. It sets the rules. It defines the constants. It determines which particles exist and which cannot. Change the vacuum slightly, and stars would never form. Atoms would not be stable. Life would be impossible. The universe is balanced on this quiet foundation. Fields humming beneath everything, unseen yet unavoidable. Every experiment, every observation, every equation points back to the same conclusion. What we call nothing is actually the most fundamental something there is. So the next time you hear the word empty, remember this. Between objects is not void. It is not absence. It is the deepest layer of reality we have ever discovered. And without it, there would be no universe to observe, no questions to ask, and no one to ask them. Hold the magnets one more time. Feel the force. You're feeling the structure of space itself. The quantum vacuum, the electromagnetic field. Something invisible, intangible, but absolutely real, more real, perhaps, than anything else. Because without it, nothing else could exist, no forces, no interactions. No matter, no you. The space between is not empty. It never was. It is full of the deepest reality we know. Fields everywhere, always active, always present. The quiet foundation beneath everything that exists. This is what allows particles to interact. This is what makes motion, energy, and matter possible.